Hi there, it's Marzena. For this Halloween I decided to join a circus. Our ringmaster, Sarah from Diamondza Craft, gathered this huge, amazingly talented troupe to perform for you today. Prepare for the show of your life. But be aware, this circus is a little bit strange and a little bit haunted. For now, feast your eyes on the first performer, the Beast Tamer. I decided that this time I will give a chance to some more destroyed doll, like this Sarah Scream from the Freaky Fusion line. I like her face sculpt a lot, but her arms are totally busted, with the elbow sockets clogged with superglue. I started as always by cutting her hair as close to the sculpt as possible. Then I softened the head with some boiling hot yoga. It serves two purposes. It makes the decapitation way safer and easier, and it melts the glue that holds the hair plugs inside the doll's head. This head, however, didn't have any glue inside, which made the hair plugs extraction way less nasty, therefore way less satisfying. With the help of 100% acetone, I wiped the factory paint. The orange eyeshadow stained the vinyl a bit, but I was pretty sure that the head shrinking process will get rid of it. For the head shrinking, I always choose the slow method. 2 days of soaking in 90% acetone and 2 days of drying after that. Repeat as needed. Here I repeated the process 3 times and she was ready for some real work. I started by curving a little bit into her lips, because I wanted to experiment a bit with a new face expression. To reattach the shrunken head to the body, I needed to widen the neck hole, trim down the neck peg and slim down the neck itself. A little bit of warm air and voila, good as new. Almost. Anyway, I finally could grab some epoxy sculpt and fix those lips. I was aiming for the sexy, licking the upper lip expression. Not the easiest modification, but had to try at least. First I needed to add the tongue, then the lower lip and a little bit of the upper teeth. In the end, it turned out okay, I guess, but we won't know for sure until we finish the face up. Before I jumped into it though, I had to work on those nasty transitions, so on the next day when epoxy cured, I sanded it down. There wasn't a lot to sand, but still, you really don't want some nasty harsh lines on your doll's face, even the tiniest ones. To prepare this head for a face up, I turned the body into a cozy burrito and sprayed the face with a layer of white primer and 2 layers of Mr. Super Clear UV Cut flat varnish. The latter creates a nice paper-like surface on the vinyl and make it super easy for pastels and pencils to stick to it. Since the face-up process is pretty much self-explanatory, let's take this time and talk a little about the concept behind this project. When I saw the open invitation from Sarah to join her collab, I immediately had a vision for a creepy Beast Tamer. I wanted to treat it as a sculpting practice, and sculpt an entire lion and a creepy-looking hyena standing beside our girl. In the end, I had to scrap this idea. I just needed to acknowledge that sculpting a full big-ass animal figurine is way out of my skill level. One day though, when it won't be a collab with a deadline that I can't really postpone as long as I want. It is important to push our limits, to grow as an artist and level up our skills, but we also need to know which push can be too hard. Failing is very demotivating, and we don't want to lose our passion because of it. So, small steps. There's nothing wrong with small steps. but I still chose a design that includes a lot of sculpting. I need to practice if I want to sculpt a lion in the future. And I will, mark my words. I decided to use the fact that this doll had her elbow sockets busted, and instead of giving her some other doll's hands, create a special pair for her that will give away her true nature and give a little creepy twist to her seductive overall look. You know that I love making sexy girls with a dark twist. I also wanted to say that this is just a figurine. Personally, I am very against the usage of animals in circus, and I do not support this practice at all. I gave this girl a darker, more bold makeup. She is a performer after all. And of course, some beauty marks were a must. This was one of those face-ups that I was not like totally in love with, but I also didn't hate it. After adding the eyeshadow, at least it started to look somewhat decent. I am far from being an expert, because I've done only 34 face-ups in my life, but speaking from my experience, that's just how it is. Sometimes you will be happy with your work after just few layers. Sometimes you will struggle with literally everything, and sometimes, like here, it will be just okay, I guess. Anyway, the face was done. This was the only Scara doll that I had, so I will just show you the size comparison here. This head didn't shrink as much as I wanted, but the difference is still quite visible. Before I started the body mutilation, I wanted to sculpt the left hand that will be holding a whip. This is not a nice girl, she needs her whip. I cut a long piece of wire and bent it so it would work as a skeleton of a whip, the handle of the whip, and the forearm of our girl. I chose to sculpt it from cosclay, cause it stays flexible after baking. I used my pasta machine to soften the clay and to get a long strip with an even thickness. Couldn't decide should my whip have 1 or 3 ends, so I rolled the dice for it.
Parzyste 1 koniec, nieparzyste 3 końce. Nieparzyste 3 końce.
So I covered the majority of the whip with clay, and I took 2 short pieces of wire and glued them to the unbent end of the long one. I also secured it by wrapping a thin bendable wire around it. Then I covered the triple tip with more cosclay. I thickened the handle too, and it was time for baking. After the baking, I slimmed it down with some solid sanding. Time for the hand. I never really learned how to even draw hands, so sculpting those was always going to be a challenge. But the fact that those were supposed to be kinda monster hands hopefully will make my job easier. It took a while and a lot of tweaking, but in the end I got to some more or less satisfying results. To finish this hand, I baked some claws and I pushed them one by one into the fingers. Now let's make another quite important accessory for a professional beast tamer: a chair. They are often portrayed with one, so it would be a shame to not add it to the project. The height of the chair will also determine the placement of our girl's arms. For this I used Super Sculpey. I first created a more or less round shape of it and baked it. It didn't need to be perfectly round, because after baking I used my micromotor to fix all the edges. Then I added a cushion to the seat. And some claw marks, cause taming the beasts is not an easy task. After another baking, time for some legs. First I drilled some holes in the seat and cut 4 pieces of wire that I tried to make as straight as possible. I roughed their surfaces with a sanding sponge, then covered them with Super Sculpey, with a little help of Bake and Bond, aka Liquid Sculpey. Then I baked them. Smoothed them with sanding and glued to the seat. The gaps I filled with more clay. With a similar technique, I added the back of the chair and all the rails or spindles or whatever you call it. The last thing that this sculpt needed was some distressing. So I created a few scratches and bite marks. What it needed then was just a hint of paint magic. Voila! Well, we can finally start the body mutilation. First step, the middle part of the torso needed to go. Also her arms. And I needed to straighten up her neck. Then I removed all the plastic seams, rough edges, and sculpted on numbers and panties. Modifying the shoulders and sanding down her boobs was also necessary. I also said bye-bye to her big toes. With a wire and a hot glue, I put everything back together and gave my girl her forever pose. Now the fun part. Time for the epoxy. First I needed to sculpt the body. I started from the shoulders. She also needed a brand new pair of bazookas. I finished sculpting the body off camera and didn't forget to mark the places where the outfit will squeeze the body a little. When the epoxy cured, I rolled up my sleeves and went straight to the sanding. Oops, almost forgot my mask. As I always say, sanding is very important, and it's best to be very thorough with it. When that was done, I wiped the dust away and I could start sculpting the outfit. I do not have much experience in sculpting the clothes, so this is gonna be something else. I decided to start with the boots. I wanted her to wear a really high, pirates-like boots. So first I sculpted a lot of wrinkles and, leather folds, starting above the knee and going down all the way to the ankle. When almost all folds on one boot were ready, I decided to drill the holes in her feet for future stand attachment. Then I added some more details, like the seams, the strap with a buckle, the upper part of the boot with some lacing, and a sole with a high heel. So far so good. Let's speed this process up. As you can see, I already sculpted the front of her short shorts, but before I sculpted the back of them, she needed some butt reduction surgery. I like big butts and I cannot lie, but this one ended up a little too big. I finished the shorts off camera and it was time for her fancy circus vest. I used Worbla Black Art, which is a thermoplastic, to make an extension of the back piece. I covered the Worbla with epoxy and I glued it to the doll's back with superglue. Then I made the front and connected it to the back. I added the collar with some gem in the middle. Okay, this is what we have so far. I believed it was time to give her her new and not necessarily improved hands. I made some off-camera improvement of the one with the whip, and now it's detachable. And I also made a second hand that will be holding onto a chair. The hands were on their place, so I could finish the vest. So to detail it a bit, I added 3 stripes on the front and 1 on the back. Last details for this outfit were the shoulder pieces. On the right one, I wanted to give her a beast paw with fur that I added later and big as claws. And on the left one, I don't really know how to call it, a pauldron? The golden thingy with fringe that you can find on a circus costume. The last thing I needed to sculpt here was the fur. First I covered the shoulder paw with it and then the forearms of our girl. And the body / the outfit was done. When the epoxy cured completely, I gave it a little more sanding and sprayed the fleshy parts with white Vallejo hobby paint and 2 layers of Mr. Super Clear. This gave me a great base for body blushing and shading. And I couldn't not add some beauty marks. Not the best body blushing that I've made, but it looks okay. To not destroy my progress, I covered the blushed skin with a liquid mask. Looked pretty nasty when it dried. Nice. I covered my desk so I won't stain it too much, and I took this black primer and applied it on my doll with an airbrush. Then I also sprayed some light grey highlights on. When that part was done, I sprayed my girl with 2 layers of MSC and used white and black pan pastels to brighten the highlights and deepen the shadows on the outfit. I fixed that again with a layer of varnish, and with white acrylic paint I covered all the pieces that would be gold or red in the future. This white base will make the colors brighter and more visible than if I would paint them straight on black. Some of the pieces got a coat of black paint. For example, the nails, the claws, and the cuffs of the shorts and boots. Then I added red and gold. Layer of varnish to seal the progress, and I could peel off the masking. Very satisfying. All I needed to do was to fix the edges and make those highlights pop a little bit more. Finally, it was time to remove the protective wrap from her head and do some fixing to the neck. She looks pretty good. And even better with her hair. I used Liquitex gloss varnish to give her outfit some nice shine. Let's focus on this little trinket. This one, here. Let's fill it with a drop of UV resin. The last accessory that I made off camera was this little cylinder hat. Cute. All that was left to do was the stand. I cut out a circle from the biggest wooden brick I've got, but it was still a little too small for both the doll and chair, so I decided to enlarge it with Super Sculpey. I spread some bacon bond on top and covered the block with clay. Unfortunately, the baking ended up a total disaster. The deadline was already biting my butt, so there was no time for despair. I needed to figure out something new and figure it out fast. So that's what I did. I decided to use my good old EVA foam. To glue everything together, contact cement is your best friend. In the end, it looked like this and just needed some paint job. Perfect. All the pieces were finally done. Time to assemble them. And my Beast Tamer project for the Haunted Circus Halloween Collaboration was complete. Before the final pictures, let's give a shout out to everyone who joined this troupe. Muni Bayo, Lacey's Creation, Lemon Kitten Creations, Noodle Toots, Bohopunkz Creations, Nerdy Capybara, Krystal Dolls, Sandrine, Bonequices by Nuno, Electric Bunny VT, Doll Party, Stephoo Doll, Wizingotta, Biene Babies, the South Paw Dolly, Stitchwych Creations, Lady Dynamite, and, of course, our host and ringmaster, Diamondza Craft. This project was something a little bit different, I must admit. Maybe because of that, I'm not like 100% feeling it. She didn't turn out bad, but I feel like something is missing. Maybe she's not creepy enough, maybe she looks a little bit like a monkey, or like me with her hairy forearms. Maybe the pose is not dynamic enough, or maybe I just have a perverted thing for creating naked dolls. I really like her, just don't love her. I love her boots though. And overall, I am very happy that I joined this collab and made her. It was still a very fun experience. And I think that everyone who participated did an amazing job. I will link all the videos and Instagram accounts of my collaborators in the description box, so go and give them some love. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and leave a comment if you want to share your thoughts with me. If you want to know what I'm gonna do next, don't forget to subscribe to my channel with a bell. And you can also follow me on Instagram and X for some sneak peeks and project announcements. Thank you, Sarah, for hosting this amazing collab. I wish you all a happy Halloween. Thank you guys for watching, and see you soon!
Popyk, nie bój się. Nie zabieramy cię do weterynarza.